The morning sunlight spilled across my kitchen like a promise, but it felt like a spotlight illuminating a fragile stage. The table was meticulously set, pancakes drizzled with molten caramel, precisely placed fresh raspberries, and the rich, dark Ethiopian roast Ethan always insisted upon. Today was our 4th anniversary. 4 years since he'd charmed me off my feet in the campus library. 4 years of building what I thought was an unshakable life. I imagined him walking through the door with that crooked, effortless smile, the one that made my knees weak, lifting me in his arms, telling me I was his forever. I was wearing the sapphire dress he loved, clutching a small, velvet box containing the personalized leather keychain I'd spent weeks designing. My phone buzzed. 7:45 a.m. Running late. Big meeting ran over. Be there soon. I reread the message. Big meeting. It was Saturday. Ethan, a rising star in the pre-law program, usually had his Saturdays free for US. Lately, however, he was always late. Always exhausted. Always distant. The knot in my chest, which I'd spent months suppressing with rationalizations and love, tightened into a painful coil. I ignored the instinct. Love, I'd learned, doesn't just make us blind. It makes us willfully stupid. I rearranged the berries, waiting for the performance to begin. When the door finally opened at 8:30 a.m., I smiled. A genuine, hopeful smile, but his eyes didn't reflect it. They were flat, looking past me as if he wanted to be anywhere else but in this kitchen, beside this woman. He didn't rush to me. He simply dropped his satchel by the door, the sound echoing in the unnatural silence. Happy anniversary, Ethan. He gave me a peck on the cheek, fast and dry, a courtesy rather than a greeting. Oh right. Happy anniversary, Lila. Something cold cracked inside me. The pancakes, once warm and inviting, suddenly looked like a pathetic monument to my delusion. We ate breakfast in a suffocating, manufactured silence. The only sound was the scrape of forks against porcelain, a soundtrack to my spiraling anxiety. I asked gentle questions about his meeting, his upcoming finals, his mother. He gave empty answers, short and practiced, never meeting my gaze. His hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly as he reached for the coffee. And then, suddenly, I asked the question my heart had been screaming, the one I had feared would end the beautiful illusion. Ethan, are you in love with someone else? He froze, fork halfway to his mouth. The caramel drizzle dripped slowly back onto the plate. His body became rigid. Lila, please don't. Just say it, Ethan, I demanded, my voice low and dangerously steady. Just tell me the truth you've been hiding behind your exhaustion and your meetings. Just say her name. The truth spilled out like oil onto clear water, poisoning everything. It's Clara. Clara Vane. Just happened. Sorry. I swear I was going to tell you after finals. Clara. The woman who smiled too sweetly, whose blonde hair was always perfectly styled, who was constantly whispering into his ear during parties. Clara, who was already wealthier and more connected than I could ever hope to be. The ultimate upgrade. The pain wasn't just heartbreak. It was the sickening realization of the timing. I remembered now. They had been subtly collaborating on a project that secured him the prestigious summer internship I had worked tirelessly to help him prepare for. The internship was everything to him. His ticket to a top-tier firm. My knees trembled. I wasn't just heartbroken and humiliated. I was financially and professionally used. Every late night I had spent editing his papers, every contact I had put him in touch with, was a brick in a foundation built for Clara Vane. He reached across the table, his hand searching for mine, for a last desperate plea for forgiveness. I pulled away sharply. No, don't you dare touch me. Get out, Ethan. Get out of my life. He looked relieved, actually relieved, to have the burden of the lie lifted. I woke up with a start. That look, my heart that flash of cold relief, erratic rhythm, was the moment the last shred of my love turned to the pure, sunlight streamed through the curtains of my modest university dorm room. Grabbing my coat or my keys. I only registered the sound of my heartbeat, a frantic, desperate drumbeat, drowning out everything else. I needed to run, to breathe, to escape the sight of that beautiful apartment, which now felt like a gilded cage built over a swamp. I walked into the street, blinded by tears and the acidic burn of betrayal. I didn't see the colors or the people. The world was a painful, distorted blur. I was numb, adrift in a sea of despair. I was crossing the intersection without looking when it happened. A car screeched, a sound that sliced through the air like a knife. Someone screamed, a high, panicked sound that might have been me. And then, in the instant before the impact, as the twin headlights bloomed into blinding suns, I saw the passenger side of the vehicle. Through the glare and the shattering glass of the windshield, there was a face, Clara. Her eyes were wide with surprise, yes, but her lips, those perfectly sculpted lips, were curled not into shock, but into a brief, triumphant smirk. It wasn't an accident. She had seen me. She had aimed. They won. The final, brutal crunch of metal and my own breaking bones was the last thing I heard. Pain flared, searing, consuming, total. And then darkness swallowed me whole. The injustice of her victorious smirk, the silent agreement to eliminate me, was the last bitter taste on my tongue. I woke up not to the sterile smell of hospital machines, but to the gentle rhythmic sound of birdsong. The air smelled of old wood and dust motes dancing in the sunlight. I opened my eyes and recognized the ceiling immediately. My room. My hideous, wonderful teenage room. The pink walls. The dusty, faded posters of bands I no longer listened to. The school uniform hanging on the chair. A uniform I hadn't worn in 7 years. I touched my face. My skin was softer, smoother, without the faint stress lines I'd accumulated working through college. My body was younger, lighter, stronger. My heart, it wasn't broken anymore. It was burning. I looked at the calendar on the wall. September 10th. I mentally calculated the timeline. Ethan and I met in October of that year. Clara Vane, the Viper, would transfer to our university in the spring semester. I had returned. I was here a full month before the entire toxic cycle even began. A terrifying, exhilarating calm settled over me. I hadn't just come back. I had been reborn, carrying 7 years of devastating, traumatic knowledge. The pain of my death was no longer an ache. It was a map, a blueprint, an indelible ink on my soul. This time I didn't just know who would betray me. I knew how they would do it, why and when. I walked to the mirror. The girl looking back was beautiful, innocent, and armed with apocalyptic foresight. I practiced a smile, sweet, genuine, and utterly vacant of the rage simmering beneath. Let the snake feel safe, I thought, the coldness of the strategy warming me from the inside. Let them believe they are winning. Until I pull the entire world from under their feet. My first task was immediate and critical. Emotional detachment. I treated my past self's memories as a case file, Ethan and Clara as targets. My heart, still tender from the phantom pain of the crash, was locked away behind an obsidian vault. I found Ethan on campus exactly where my memory placed him, leaning against the stone archway, just as charming, his smile crooked and mesmerizing. But now I saw the entitlement in his posture, the manipulative gloss over his eyes. He was beautiful lies packaged in a perfect smile. He approached me, oozing confidence. "Hey Lila, want to grab a coffee sometime? I'm Ethan." I smiled sweetly, exactly as I had done 7 years ago. But this time the smile was a weapon. "Of course, Ethan. I'd love to." Let him think he was winning. Let him believe the script is unchanged. The vengeance blueprint was simple. I wouldn't seek cheap, momentary satisfaction. I would destroy them both, socially, emotionally, financially, until they were left staring at the ruins, praying for the mercy they denied me. Clara wasn't due to arrive for months, but I knew her trajectory. I started building a subtle social network around the people I knew she would eventually target. I listened to campus gossip, not for fun, but for leverage. I discovered that Clara's entire college enrollment was funded by a wealthy, conservative grandmother who demanded absolute perfection and had zero tolerance for scandal, particularly those involving public intoxication or academic misconduct. This was her Achilles heel. I let Ethan pursue me. Every date, every touch, every late-night conversation was a performance. I meticulously gave him exactly what he thought he wanted: unwavering loyalty, intellectual support, and uncritical adoration. I became his perfect, predictable girlfriend, trapping him in a commitment he would soon desperately want to escape, but wouldn't know how. I made him fall in love with the illusion harder than before. The first few months were a terrifying exercise in emotional restraint. I had to live the love I knew would become a lie. Then I met Alex. Alex Chen was Ethan's best friend, the quiet, thoughtful one who always stood on the periphery. In the first life, I had dismissed him as introverted. Now I saw the genuine warmth in his deep-set eyes, the way he watched people not with judgment, but with careful, analytical observation. He was an engineering major, grounded and fiercely ethical. I approached him under the guise of needing help with a complex assignment, a tactical move, as he was the perfect counterbalance to Ethan's superficiality. He was surprised. No one ever talked to him first. But slowly, our professional collaboration blossomed into something real. We spent hours in the library, studying together, laughing together at the ridiculousness of college life. And when I cried, pretending it was about the impossible workload, he didn't try to fix it like Ethan would. He just listened, his presence a silent, solid anchor. He offered sincerity that Ethan had never possessed. But I didn't allow myself to fall. My heart was a battlefield, still scarred by the specter of the crash. Victory came first. The real war began when Clara Vane transferred in the spring semester. I played the role of the welcoming, sweet girlfriend, even introducing her to Ethan, ensuring the inevitable happened exactly on my terms. I befriended Clara, acting naive and trusting. I let her see me as a harmless, easily fooled victim. I listened to her secrets, her drug history, her contempt for her family, the digital affair she was having with a married professor. I woke up with the weaknesses she hid from the world. My heart pounding a furious, erratic rhythm, as if it had been running a marathon, utterly untraceable. The sunlight streamed through the curtains of my modest university dorm room. And finances. Academic sabotage. I anonymously sent the professor's wife screenshots of the flirtatious emails Clara had sent, emails I knew from my past life would exist. The professor was fired. Clara was questioned and suffered a massive, visible loss of standing in her program. Financial cutoff. I leaked evidence of Clara's disdain for her grandmother's conservative rules to the foundation that handled her trust fund. It was subtle. A video clip of her mocking the foundation at a party, posted anonymously from a burner VPN. Her grandmother, seeing the lack of respect for the legacy, immediately cut off her stipend, forcing Clara to live on student loans for the first time in her life. Clara's life began to collapse silently. She blamed the professor's wife, a jealous rival, bad luck. But the truth was, she was drowning in the perfect storm I had orchestrated. Target: Ethan Thorne's future. With Clara crippled, I focused on Ethan and his precious career path. Professional ruin. I knew the exact date and time of his prestigious summer internship interview. 3 days prior, I anonymously emailed the senior partner a detailed, professional-sounding report accusing Ethan of plagiarizing a key policy paper from a rival school, a paper he had indeed cheated on in the past life, but which I had rewritten for him this time to create a verifiable comparison. The interview offer was rescinded. Social isolation. I leveraged his former social currency against him. I began subtly exposing his manipulative tendencies to his friends, not with accusations, but with carefully planted truths. Did you know Ethan actually told his mother your scholarship was less prestigious than his? His friends, whom I had cultivated relationships with, began to quietly pull away, leaving him isolated and vulnerable. Piece by piece I took everything. His grades plummeted due to the stress. His confidence shattered. His future vanished. He was left with only one thing: me. His loving, supportive, perfect girlfriend. Alex noticed the change in me. He saw the cold focus, the suppressed anger that flared in my eyes whenever Ethan or Clara were mentioned. He was the only person who saw the predator beneath the mask of the victim. One rainy night, after a study session where I had been abnormally silent, he softly said, "You don't have to pretend with me, Lila." I froze, gripping my pen so hard my knuckles were white. He looked at me with gentle, direct eyes. No judgment, no pressure, just an overwhelming warmth. "I don't know what you're doing or who you're fighting, but whatever it is, it's consuming you. You look like a soldier fighting a war only you can see." The truth felt like a physical weight lifting off my chest. "I was betrayed, Alex," I whispered, not daring to look at him. "Not just cheated on. I was humiliated and then destroyed by people who felt entitled to my life. I came back, and the only thing that kept me alive was the knowledge that I could make them pay." I stopped, waiting for the horror, the recoil. He reached out and gently took my hand, his thumb tracing the blue veins on my wrist. "Then you are the bravest person I know, Lila," he said, his voice a low promise. "Whatever you lived through, you survived. And you chose to fight back alone. You don't have to explain. But know this. I see the warrior you had to become, and I'm here." For the first time since my death, someone saw me, not my mask or my trauma, but the fundamental, strong person beneath. My heart didn't just soften. It felt like a broken thing that was finally being reassembled, piece by piece, on an unbreakable foundation of trust. Clara's life had collapsed first. Disgraced, broke, and alone, she dropped out of school, leaving the city in shame. Then Ethan lost everything. His grades, his internship, his future law career, and his friends. He was isolated, drowning, the man I had spent years building reduced to a terrified shell. And when he finally broke, 2 days before the end of the semester, he came to my apartment, crying, his face blotchy and desperate. "Lila, why is everything going wrong?" he choked out, collapsing onto my sofa. "My life is falling apart. You're the only person I trust. You're the only person who hasn't left." I walked over and hugged him gently, running my hand through his hair, the same gesture of comfort he had used to deceive me for months. His body shook in my arms. Then I leaned down, my lips close to his ear, and whispered the truth, my voice soft as silk, cold as ice. "Because this time, Ethan, I was the one who betrayed you." His body went utterly rigid. He pulled back, his eyes wide and vacant, unable to process the words. You did this." "All of it," I confirmed, smiling a slow, genuine smile, the one I had perfected in the mirror 7 years ago. "I told them about the plagiarism. I showed your friends the messages. I was the one who pulled the threads, and you, my love, unraveled beautifully." The shock, the fear, the devastating realization of his complete ruin, all flickered across his handsome face. He wasn't just ruined. He was humiliated by the person he thought loved him most. "Why?" he choked out, his voice a desperate rasp. I stepped back, allowing the contempt to finally flood my expression. "You didn't just cheat on me, Ethan. You used my passion, my loyalty, and my finances to build your career. And then you let your viper, Clara, try to kill me to clean up your mess. You betrayed my life. I simply decided to betray your future." The taste of his devastation was sweeter than any love, more potent than any drug. I refused to be the victim again. My death gave me power. My rebirth gave me justice. I walked to the door and opened it. "You're late for your final, Ethan. Go." He stumbled out, a ghost of the man he once was, into the cold, indifferent sunlight. Ethan and Clara were left with the ruins of their choices. Their futures were sealed. Mediocrity, shame, and debt. And I walked away from the wreckage and straight into the quiet certainty of Alex. I didn't need to confess the specifics of the rebirth, but I told him everything he needed to know. The extent of the betrayal, the fear of the crash, and the calculated, cold strategy required to ensure my survival and their demise. He didn't ask for explanations, or justifications, or platitudes. He simply held my hand and looked at me with those steady, grounded eyes. "You fought your way back to me, Lila," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are the strongest person I know." With him I felt something Ethan never gave me, peace. No lies. No fear. No betrayal. I woke up with a start. He accepted my heart pounding, a furious strategist I had become, as if it had been knowing that the ferocity required to survive was also the curtains of my modest university dorm room. We finished college together. I started my own successful design consultancy, making certain my financial security was absolute and untouchable. Alex became a brilliant ethical engineer, building structures that were meant to last. One quiet evening years later, we sat on the balcony of our home. I leaned against him, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery colors. I still had the knowledge of the past life, a silent library of betrayal, but it no longer haunted me. It only served as a constant reminder. I refused to be the victim again. My death gave me clarity, my rebirth gave me justice, and my courage, born in the flames of vengeance, finally allowed me to claim a love that was built on an unbroken foundation. 5 years later, the shadows of that first toxic life had long receded, replaced by the warm, constant light of what Lila and Alex had built. It wasn't a life of grand gestures or flashy appearances. It was a life of structural integrity. Lila was now 30, her ambition channeling itself not into revenge, but into creation. Her design consultancy, Luminous Clarity, was thriving, specializing in minimalist, resilient architecture and branding. She built things that couldn't be easily knocked down. Her strategic mind, once focused on demolition, was now a powerful engine of growth and integrity. She had learned to trust her foresight, using it to anticipate market shifts rather than personal attacks. Alex was her anchor. He ran a successful engineering firm, focused on sustainable, ethical construction. When they had arguments, they were debates about foundation load calculations or design compromises, never about hidden loyalties. They never had to wonder what the other was thinking, because the currency of their relationship was radical honesty. Alex, who had watched her fight her way out of the darkness, respected the silence and the strength she carried. They lived in a quiet, modern home Alex had designed, filled with natural light and the scent of the books they read side by side. One Saturday morning, Lila stood at the large kitchen island, making coffee, Alex's favorite dark roast, made perfectly. She glanced down at her left hand, tracing the smooth, clean silver of her wedding band. She still remembered the ghost of the crash, the phantom feeling of the steering wheel crushing her chest, but the memory was now merely a navigational tool, not a constant source of pain. Alex walked in, his presence a comforting weight. He didn't rush or perform. He simply paused at the archway, his eyes meeting hers, a deep, settling connection. "Morning," he murmured, his voice low and warm. He walked over, didn't grab her, didn't ask for her attention, but wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Good morning," she replied, leaning back into his strength. "Thinking about the next project. Our bid needs to be completely airtight." "It will be," Alex said, kissing her temple. "You're incapable of anything else." He understood. Her need for things to be airtight, for everything to be perfectly constructed, was a direct result of the life she almost lost. But with him, that intensity wasn't a flaw. It was a foundational strength he appreciated and protected. Lila turned in his arms, her eyes clear and unburdened. She was no longer running, no longer fighting. "I realized something this morning," she said softly. "The Ethan in the first life taught me how to pretend love. The second life, the rebirth, taught me how to earn revenge. But you, Alex, you taught me that the best form of clarity isn't foresight or vengeance. It's peace." He smiled, a quiet, reassuring smile that made her feel seen, truly seen, for the woman she was. Scars, strategies and all. "I just built the frame, Lila. You brought the light." They settled into the routine of their perfect morning, the quiet confidence of their love a constant, unbreakable foundation beneath their feet. They had survived the chaos of deceit and emerged into a life that was honest, stable, and entirely their own.